60 Minutes Overtime.
When a giant photograph of a child appeared looming over the U.S.-Mexico border near San Diego this fall, art aficionados knew right away it was the work of an artist who calls himself JR. You may have never heard of JR, but his giant photographs have appeared in some 140 countries, sometimes in fancy art galleries, but more often than not pasted illegally on sidewalks and subways, buildings and rooftops. Plenty of famous artists like Basquiat and Keith Haring started out scrawling their work on the streets, often in the dead of night. But few have continually displayed their art in public spaces on the scale of JR. This is the photograph that popped up in September along the U.S.-Mexico border. A 64-foot-tall picture of a Mexican child named Kikito who lives just on the other side of the fence. Built on scaffolding on Mexican soil, there was nothing U.S. Border Patrol agents could do about it. It was classic JR, a person's picture pasted in a public place that made everyone stop and stare. JR has been doing this kind of thing all over the world for the past 14 years. He put the faces of Kenyans on rooftops in a Nairobi slum. In Cuba, where oversized images of Castro and Che are the norm, JR put up enormous pictures of everyday people. On New York sidewalks and Istanbul buildings, in Tunisia during the Arab Spring in a looted police station, JR has pasted his pictures, often without permission and at risk of being arrested.
Outside of Paris in the 1970s.
We met up with JR in a suburb of Paris in front of a giant mural he'd made out of photographs of more than 700 local residents.
So that's why I put them in the center.
We don't know his real name, and that's just how JR wants it. In public, he never takes off his glasses or hat. There's a practical reason for it, but a little mystery also builds mystique in the world of art. What we do know is that JR is 35 years old and was born in France, the child of Tunisian immigrants. I don't think I've ever done an interview for 60 Minutes when I didn't actually know the name of the person I'm interviewing. You're not going to tell me your name.
Would it help, you know? I mean, in a lot of countries...
It would help me.
In countries where I got arrested,
It's important for you to be anonymous.
Yeah, because unfortunately, when I travel in a lot of other countries where what I do, just paper and glue, is not considered as art, I get arrested, deported, put in jail.
What's art in one country is a jailable offense in another.
Exactly.
JR has been committing jailable offenses since he was a teenager. He says he was repeatedly kicked out of high school and would sneak out at night with friends, spray painting graffiti in hard-to-reach areas. Graffiti or tagging, what was the appeal of that?
We all have that sense of, I want to exist. I want to, show that I'm here, that I'm present.
Graffitiing was saying, I am here. I am a person.
Exactly. I'm here. I exist.
His foray into photography began, he says, by accident.
I found a camera in the subway, a tiny camera.
You really just found it?
Yeah, no, it's true. And it's funny because a lot of friends tease me, yeah, right, you started your career stealing a camera.
I'm not sure the police would believe that story, but...
I know, but,
some things are true.
Exactly. And at some point I realized I was not the best in graffiti. I had the balls to climb any building you want, but I would not do the craziest piece. But I was with friends who were amazing. Then I realized, wait, let me document the journey.
The journey of it.
Yeah, and so I went from I exist to they exist, and I realized the power of that.
Once photography got into the picture, it was about these other people exist.
Exactly.
They exist.
They exist. On remarche ensemble, là, tu vas vers Clichy-Plage.
Many of JR's friends in this Paris suburb, whom he began taking pictures of, felt they didn't exist in the eyes of French society. Most of those who live in this neighborhood are of African or Arab descent, first or second generation immigrants, and few wealthy Parisians ever venture here. In 2005, riots broke out in this neighborhood after 2 kids died while being chased by police. The violence spread across France. JR saw how the young people in the suburb were being portrayed on television and decided to use his camera to tell a different story.
You would see the riots, everyone had hoodies, and then so any kids coming from the suburb would look like a monster to you. So that's when I started photographing them from really close. And I said, I'm going to put your name, your age, your building number on the poster, and I'm going to paste it in Paris, where they see you as a monster. And actually, you're going to play your own caricature.
Why play your own caricature? Isn't that feeding a stereotype?
It's actually, by feeding it, it breaks it. And I wanted them to be in control of their own image.
And you wanted people in Paris who maybe had never been to this neighborhood to understand what?
The humanity. When you look at those faces, it makes you want to smile. By playing the monster, they don't look like monster anymore.
JR enlarged the pictures and printed them out, and with friends began pasting them up illegally at night around Paris. Most were immediately taken down, but the mayor of one Parisian district gave JR permission to paste them on a wall outside a museum. It was JR's first official public art exhibit. He was 23 years old.
The people from Paris would go in front of those pictures and take a photo of themselves with them. And people were trying to find who is who and get a photo with them where they're supposed to be the monsters that are about to invade Paris. So it kind of break the tension that there was.
The idea of breaking tension through photography was a revelation to JR. In 2007, with money saved from odd jobs, he decided to head to Israel. It was after the Second Intifada, and his plan was to paste photographs on the wall separating Palestinians and Israelis in the West Bank.
So I started making a list of people doing the same job on each side: hairdresser, taxi driver, security guard, teacher, student. And then I would go and I would say, look, I want to paste you playing your own caricature of how the other sees you, but I would paste you with the other taxi driver. Oh, yeah, sure, yeah, take my photo. But the other guy, he's never gonna accept. They're really close-minded. They're never gonna accept. And when I go there, same thing.
Each person on each side said, I'll do it, but the person on the other side won't do it.
Exactly.
Before he could begin pasting the photographs, JR and his team were arrested by Israeli authorities for not having a permit. They were loaded into the back of a wagon and hauled off to jail. After some questioning, they were released and given 15 days to leave the country. Instead, JR went to the Palestinian side of the wall and began to paste.
I paste a giant photo of the taxi driver and a second photo of the other taxi driver, and a crowd of people, very quickly, big crowds. And then first guy asked the question, but my friend, who is these people? I say, oh, one is Israeli and one is Palestinian. And then you have a big silence on the crowd. And I say, so who is who? And they couldn't even recognize their enemy or their brother.
On the Israeli side, to ensure he wouldn't be arrested again, JR announced the day and time he was going to put up his photographs. He says so many reporters and onlookers showed up to watch, the authorities decided to just let him go ahead with his project. The attention he got from his work in the Middle East and France led to some sales of his photographs, which then allowed him to begin to travel further afield. Over the next few years in Kenya, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, he focused his lens on women, heroes, he says, who are often treated as second-class citizens. He photographed women's faces and placed them where they could no longer be ignored. A Kenyan woman named Elizabeth Kamanga asked JR to paste her picture for all the world to see.
The woman asked me, make my story travel.
Have my eyes, have my story travel around the world.
There was someone that they never heard of to hear, like sending a bottle in the water.
Her story did travel thousands of miles around the world. JR pasted her eyes onto a container ship called the Magellan that spent months at sea.
The story will continue after this.
In 2008, he ventured into Providencia, the oldest favela in Rio, a slum perched on a hillside controlled by a well-armed gang of drug dealers. JR photographed an elderly woman whose grandson was murdered by a rival gang. She agreed to let him paste her image on the stairs leading into the neighborhood. Did you have permission from any of the gangs?
From nobody. We start pasting the stairs like that. Great vibe, kids playing, we're just pasting on the stairs. After 10 stairs, huge fights of guns. And it started going from all over.
JR and his team were caught in crossfire between police and gang members.
We run and we hide like it's the last day of my life. And the next day, we came back and we kept on doing the stairs. And I think that what made the people in the community realize that, okay, we're not just here for a minute. And that first time when that woman was pasted on the stairs, everybody in the community understand what the project was about. It was her. She was standing there straight and looking strong.
Her photo covered 80 steps, and after that, other residents allowed JR to post their faces and eyes on the sides of their homes. A display of strength and dignity, he says, that could be seen from the wealthier neighborhood below. That word dignity to you is important.
You know, the people made me realize it's important in every single pasting.
Dignity is something that all of us want.
All of us.
No matter
Anywhere,
what, any
no
walk of
matter
life.
the background.
Why? Because the issues people are facing are life and death.
Of course. Dignity goes through the way we're being seen by the others, the way we portray ourselves.
I think some people hearing that are going to say, look, you're telling me that people, who don't know where their next meal is coming from are struggling to survive, care about art?
You know what? Yes.
If you're wondering how JR pays for all these projects, so were we.
Si nous avait fait un close-up comme ça.
He now has a team of about 16 people working for him out of studios in Paris and New York. He doesn't like to give details of how much his projects cost, but some of the money comes from the sale of limited edition prints of his work. He doesn't accept any sponsorship from corporations, but he does have wealthy art patrons who help him out.
There's amazing people out there. There's people that support me. There's someone that gave me a building to put my studio that I don't pay rent, so I don't have to look for sponsors. There are amazing people that I called the shadow philanthropists, the people who really want to change.
Shadow philanthropists.
Yeah, and that don't look for return. They don't get into philanthropy to get more credit.
JR's work may focus on other people, but it's also made him a celebrity in his own right. He has more than 1 million followers on Instagram and routinely is seen in the company of rock stars and other artists. Last month, a documentary JR directed called Faces, Places was nominated for an Oscar.
Can you press me some zoom?
Fame has its benefits. JR doesn't always have to sneak around now. He's often allowed to display his work. So when were you doing the work inside? A few months ago on Ellis Island in New York Harbor, the National Park Service let him paste old photographs of immigrants at this abandoned hospital.
That's the little girl.
And what does it mean?
You know, I just try to do art in places that it would raise questions rather to give answers.
JR is now encouraging others to raise questions by pasting their own photographs. He has a website where groups of people with an idea or a cause can send in their pictures. He says he'll enlarge and print them and ship them back. JR-inspired images have so far been pasted on walls in dozens of countries around the world. Are you still an artist if you're not taking the photo and you're just printing stuff up and sending it out to people and they're putting it up?
I don't know. I mean, I am. As much as a printer, I'm a photographer, that I'm a wallpaper man. You know, that's what I do. Man. At the end of the day, I wallpaper buildings, you know? That's what I do. So that's why I think the title artist is the most prestigious title I'll ever get. Because, you know, the truth is I paste building.